By the afternoon of Wednesday, the 4th of March, 2026, the initial smoke over Tehran had begun to thin, but the geopolitical atmosphere remained suffocating. What started as a frantic weekend of breaking news alerts had by midweek solidified into a grim new reality. The world was no longer just watching a military operation. It was witnessing the clinical execution of a superpower's new playbook. The genesis of this shift can be traced back to a video that continues to loop on every screen from the Pentagon to the markets in Dubai. It was a brief, almost nonchalant clip posted to X by Fox News' Jackie Heinrich. She had been granted access to Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, a setting that in hindsight felt surreal. Amidst the manicured lawns and the quiet luxury of Palm Beach, the commander-in-chief was casually dismantling a 47-year-old regional power. "Nobody can believe the success we're having," Trump told Heinrich. He didn't speak with the practiced solemnity of a wartime leader or the defensive crouch of a politician justifying civilian casualties. He spoke like a high-stakes developer who had just closed the deal of a lifetime ahead of schedule. Then came the sentence that froze the global intelligence community: 48 leaders are gone in one shot. The silence of the analysts. The phrase "one shot" was more than a description. It was a branding of a new American military doctrine. For decades, the U.S. approach to Iran had been one of incremental escalation, a slow, agonizing climb up a ladder of sanctions, proxy skirmishes, and diplomatic cold fronts. By the afternoon of March 4, it was clear that Trump had simply sawed the ladder in half. The extraordinary nature of that 48 figure isn't just the body count. It's the casual way it was delivered. Within 2 hours of the post, Reuters had run the wire and every defense analysis feed on the planet was redlining. Yet a strange, hollow silence followed. No one in the mainstream media seemed prepared to ask the structural questions. Who were the 48? What institutions did they leave hollow? And what happens to a nation when its entire brain is removed in 36 hours? Ahead of schedule, as we sit here on Wednesday afternoon, Trump's subsequent comments to CNBC and The Atlantic take on a more chilling resonance. He didn't describe a crisis or a conflict. He used the vocabulary of a project manager. It's moving along rapidly. Everything is ahead of schedule. This choice of words signaled that Operation Epic Fury was not a reactive spasm of violence triggered by a singular provocation. It was a premeditated, surgical, and cold-blooded rollout. To Trump, the Islamic Republic wasn't an ideological foe to be debated. It was a bad asset to be liquidated. However, the most jarring pivot occurred when Trump revealed the off-ramp while the bombs were still falling. He confirmed to Michael Scherer that the surviving elements of the Iranian leadership, whoever was left in the bunkers, were already reaching out. "They want to talk, and I have agreed to talk," Trump said before adding a signature barb. "They played too cute." The new rules of engagement. This is the essence of the one-shot doctrine, total kinetic decapitation, combined with immediate, ruthless diplomacy. By this Wednesday afternoon, the results are undeniable. While the Skylight tanker smolders in the Strait of Hormuz, a victim of an IRGC that is now a headless beast lashing out the political leadership in Washington, is already moving to the deal phase. The shock felt across the globe this March 4th is the realization that the old rules of war have been incinerated. There is no more climb, there is only the shot. As the world watches the 4% of Iran's internet traffic that remains, the question is no longer about who won the opening gambit. The question is, what remains of a civilization when its institutional memory is deleted in a single afternoon? To understand the magnitude of what Donald Trump revealed from the patio of Mar-a-Lago, one must look past the carnage and into the architecture of the Iranian state. In the West, we often fall into the trap of great man history, focusing on the supreme leader or the charismatic face of a movement. But a state is not a person. It is a machine. And on the afternoon of the 4th of March, 2026, it became clear that while the machine's chassis remains, its entire operating system has been deleted. The 48 is not a body count. It is a data wipe. The concept of institutional memory. In intelligence circles, there is a term of art called institutional memory. It refers to the unwritten rules, the personal relationships, the secret ledger of favors, and the deep technical know-how that allows a complex organization to function under pressure. You can rebuild a silo, you can manufacture a new drone, but you cannot download 40 years of operational nuance into the head of a mid-level colonel who is suddenly promoted because everyone above him is dead. When Trump mentioned that 48 leaders are gone in one shot, he was describing the simultaneous evaporation of Iran's strategic brain trust. These were the men who knew where the ghost bank accounts were hidden in Panama and Singapore. They were the men who knew the exact frequency of a specific radar array in the Persian Gulf, or the personal cell phone number of a Hezbollah commander in Beirut. The death of coordination Artesh versus IRGC. Perhaps the most significant confirmation to emerge by this Wednesday afternoon is the death of Abdul Rahim Mousavi, the chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces, the Artesh. To the casual observer, Mousavi might seem like just another general, but his death within 1 minute of the strike on the supreme leader's compound tells a deeper story. Iran has always operated a fragile parallel military structure, the IRGC, the Ideological Guard, and the Artesh, the conventional military. These two entities often distrusted each other, and the only thing keeping them synchronized was a handful of senior connectors who sat at the very top of the pyramid. Mousavi was the bridge. Mohammad Bagheri, also confirmed dead, was the architect of their joint coordination. With both men gone, the dual military system has reverted to its base state confusion. This explains why, even as the Iranian political remnants reach out to Washington to talk, the IRGC's naval wings are still striking tankers in the strait. The left hand no longer knows what the right hand is doing because the nervous system has been severed. The procurement masters and the proxy nodes, the kill list, confirmed by the IDF and various intelligence agencies, reads like a who's who of Iranian survival. Amir Nasirzadeh, the man who knew every procurement channel, every black market defense contractor, and every weapon system in the inventory. Ali Shamkhani, the man who had memorized 40 years of Iran's security architecture. When you kill a man like Nasirzadeh, you don't just lose a general. You lose the Rolodex that keeps the missiles supplied. You lose the fixer who can get a spare part for a centrifuge through a front company in Istanbul. The American media is focused on the death of Ali Khamenei, the symbol, but the strategic reality of Operation Epic Fury is found in the death of the 40 key military commanders and the 8 top-tier civilian coordinators. These were the Tier 1 operators. Below them are 2nd and 3rd tier officers, who have spent their careers following orders, not giving them. They are now being asked to navigate a national collapse while the world's most advanced air force orbits overhead. Why weapons don't matter without the 48? There is a reason Trump said this was ahead of schedule. If the U.S. had merely bombed missile factories, the 48 leaders would have spent the next 5 years rebuilding them more hidden and more resilient than before. By killing the 48, the U.S. has rendered the weapons that remain, the thousands of missiles still in their tubes, practically useless for a coordinated strategic campaign. A missile is only as dangerous as the command that authorizes its flight. Without the institutional memory of the 48, those missiles are just expensive lawn ornaments, or worse, rogue assets fired in desperation by panicked local commanders. The one shot wasn't aimed at Iran's chest, it was aimed at its prefrontal cortex. As we move into the evening of March 4, the Islamic Republic is an organism in the middle of a massive multi-organ failure. It is still moving, still lashing out, but the consciousness that gave those movements purpose is gone. By the afternoon of March, 4 military analysts have begun to piece together the timeline of what will surely be studied as the most successful decapitation strike in history. Operation Epic Fury was not a campaign of attrition. It was a lightning bolt designed to shatter the very concept of Iranian command. While the American public was waking up to the news on day 1, the Iranian high command was already entering a death spiral. The centerpiece of this collapse was the strike on the Supreme Leader's compound, a moment of tactical precision that confirms the U.S. and its allies had achieved total intelligence transparency. The 1-minute confirmation. The most chilling detail to emerge involves Abdul Rahim Mousavi, the chief of staff of the Artesh. IDF Public Affairs, which has been uncharacteristically detailed in its reporting, confirmed that Mousavi was eliminated within 1 minute of the initial strike on the compound. Think about the technical implications of that window. For Mousavi, the highest-ranking officer of the conventional military, to die within 60 seconds of the Supreme Leader tells us 2 things. The gathering. This was not a lucky hit on scattered targets. The entire Iranian chain of command had been detected at a singular point of failure. Intelligence suggests the strike was accelerated because a high-level meeting had been detected. Total penetration, the U.S. didn't just know where the buildings were. They knew who was in which room and at what time. The resulting kill list includes not just Ali Khamenei, but the architects of Iran's entire defense posture, Ali Shamkhani National Security, Mohammad Bagheri Armed Forces Chief, and Amir Nasirzadeh Defense Minister. In the first 36 hours, the room where decisions were made ceased to exist. 36 hours of strategic paralysis. What followed the initial strikes was not a counterattack, but a profound, deafening silence from Tehran. This was by design. As the kinetic strikes hit physical targets, a parallel electronic warfare campaign reduced Iran's internet connectivity to a mere 4%. This wasn't just about stopping propaganda, it was about command suppression. In modern warfare, if a provincial IRGC commander in Mashhad cannot reach his superior in Tehran, he reverts to his last known orders. By the afternoon of March 4, those last orders are proving disastrous. Without a central brain, the various organs of the Iranian state are acting on muscle memory. The Navy, IRGC, still firing at tankers in the Strait of Hormuz because no one has the authority to tell them to stop. The air defense attempting to track U.S. drones, but failing because the AN, FPS, 132 Block 5 radar system in Qatar, a key node for tracking incoming threats, was reportedly targeted early on, creating a sensor fog over the region. The diplomacy. A frantic, uncoordinated reach out to Washington by surviving politicians who are terrified that they are the next 48. The myth of the fortress shattered. For decades, the Islamic Republic projected an image of a fortress Iran, a nation whose leadership was tucked away in deep, impenetrable bunkers beneath mountains like Pickaxe. Operation Epic Fury proved that there is no such thing as a safe bunker when your location is sold out by signals intelligence or human assets. The 48 were not killed in the field. They were killed in their seats of power. The strike was so rapid that there was no time for a succession council to convene. The Assembly of Experts, the eight-member body tasked with picking a new leader, has been unable to safely meet. Consequently, there is no commander-in-chief in Iran today. There is only a collection of panicked individuals in various underground facilities looking at 48 empty chairs and realizing that the schedule Trump mentioned is still running. As we move into the next phase of this crisis, the kinetic reality is this: you cannot fight a war when your generals are dead before the dust from the first bomb even settles. The Iranian military is currently a headless giant swinging wildly in the dark, while the U.S. prepares for the next ahead-of-schedule phase of the rollout. While the world was busy decoding Donald Trump's 48 comment on the afternoon of Wednesday, March 4, the actual cost of the conflict was being calculated in the narrow, treacherous waters of the Strait of Hormuz. It is here that the two Irans dynamic, the military acting on muscle memory and the political remnants acting on survival, has created a paradox that threatens to collapse the global energy market. The death of the Skylight. The physical evidence of Iran's muscle memory can be seen 5 nautical miles north of Kasab, Port Oman. This morning, Iranian state television broadcast images that will haunt energy traders for years: thick, oily, black smoke billowing from the Skylight, a Palau flag tanker. The fate of the offending oil tanker, the Iranian announcer said with a chilling detachment, is that it is now sinking. Shortly after, a second vessel, the MKD Viom flying a Marshall Islands flag, was also struck. These were not sophisticated military operations. They were desperate last-order strikes by IRGC naval units operating without a central command. When the 48 were eliminated, the IRGC units in the Gulf didn't stop. They reverted to their most basic defensive protocol: make the strait lethal. The MSC Safe Shelter Protocol. If the kinetic strikes were a shock, the private sector's response has been a cardiac arrest. MSC Mediterranean Shipping Company, the world's largest container carrier, didn't just issue a warning. They effectively parked the Middle East. MSC has halted all bookings for worldwide cargo to the entire Middle East region. Furthermore, they instructed all vessels currently in the Gulf or en route to proceed to designated safe shelter areas. When the world's largest shipping company tells its fleet to go find a hole to hide in, it is no longer a shipping delay, it is a total cessation of trade. Hapag-Lloyd followed suit, suspending all transits through the strait until further notice. Image showing a map of the Strait of Hormuz with icons of burning tankers and cargo ships moving towards safe ports in Oman and the UAE. The insurance death blow, unquantifiable risk. The most significant development by this Wednesday afternoon, however, isn't the missiles, it's the spreadsheets. The Financial Times has confirmed that major maritime insurance companies are not just raising premiums, they are canceling policies entirely for ships in the Persian Gulf. In the world of global trade, an insurance cancellation is the ultimate soft closure. A ship without insurance cannot legally enter most international ports. It is a pariah. By canceling these policies, the private sector has done what the U.S. Navy didn't have to do. They officially closed the Strait of Hormuz. The insurance companies are signaling that the risk is no longer high, it is unquantifiable. They are looking at the 48 dead leaders and realizing there is no one on the Iranian side to call to ensure safe passage. There is no hotline when the other end of the phone is a smoking crater. The paradox of 12 million barrels. To understand why your gas prices are about to move in a way you've never seen, consider the math of the strait. Last year, Saudi Arabia 5.3 million barrels per day. Iraq 3.2 million barrels per day. UAE 2.1 million barrels per day. Kuwait 4 million barrels per day. Combined, that is 12 million barrels of oil every single day that must transit a corridor where 2 tankers are currently burning and insurance has vanished. Trump told Fox News he isn't worried about oil prices. But as the London and New York markets prepare to open tomorrow, the reality on the water tells a different story. The Skylight is sinking. The IRGC is still firing. And the people who knew how to turn the chaos switch off are among the 48 currently being prepared for a state funeral in Tehran. The one shot may have won the war on land, but in the smoldering waters of the strait, the headless ghost of the IRGC is still capable of dragging the global economy down with it. By the afternoon of Wednesday, March 4, the fog of war has shifted from the battlefield to the briefing room. While the physical destruction of the 48 is a matter of record, the intellectual framework behind Operation Epic Fury is only now coming into focus. It is a blend of Donald Trump's art of the deal ruthlessness and Senator Lindsey Graham's hawkish ideological clarity, a doctrine we might call coercive democracy. The 2-week casus belli. To justify a strike of this magnitude, one that effectively liquidated the leadership of a sovereign state, the Trump administration needed a ticking clock. Trump provided it during his weekend media blitz, claiming that Iran was supposed to receive nuclear weapons within 2 weeks. In Washington and at the IAEA headquarters in Vienna, this 2-week claim has been met with profound skepticism. Independent nuclear analysts argue that even with 60% enriched uranium, the weaponization phase integrating a warhead into a delivery system takes months, if not years. But by this Wednesday afternoon, the technical accuracy of the claim is irrelevant. In the Trump-Graham Doctrine, the 2-week window was not a scientific measurement, it was a strategic ultimatum. It served as the casus belli to skip the traditional escalation ladder and go straight to the one-shot decapitation. The message to the world was clear. We aren't waiting for the 90% enrichment line anymore. We are moving the finish line to wherever we say it is. They played too cute. The most revealing phrase of this entire crisis came during Trump's interview with The Atlantic. Describing the Iranian leadership, he didn't use the language of evil or tyranny. He said, "They should have done it sooner. They played too cute." To anyone who has followed Trump's career in New York real estate, this is a familiar indictment. In Trump's world, playing cute means trying to build leverage while sitting at the negotiating table. It means trying to outmaneuver the bigger player by being clever. By the afternoon of March 4, the cost of playing cute has been tallied 48 dead leaders. Trump is signaling that the Islamic Republic miscalculated the Trump factor. They thought they could fire proxy missiles and enrich uranium to extract a better deal. Instead, they found that the developer across the table was willing to bulldoze the entire building and start the project from scratch. The mothership and the mandate. While Trump handles the deal side, Senator Lindsey Graham has articulated the ideological endgame. Speaking on Meet the Press, Graham's language was surgical. The mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead. But it was Graham's 3 no's that defined the future. No boots on the ground. This is not Iraq. There will be no American-led reconstruction. We don't pick the government. The U.S. will not install a puppet regime. Choose wisely. A direct ultimatum to the 90 million people of Iran. This is the doctrine of coercive democracy without occupation. The U.S. has used epic fury to strip away the regime's capacity to suppress its own people, effectively handing the keys of the country to a population that has been kept in the dark for 4% of the internet's capacity. The gamble is enormous. Every military historian knows the risks of regime removal without a follow-up plan. Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq. However, Graham and Trump are betting that by removing the 48, the institutional memory of the repression machine, the Iranian people will naturally gravitate toward a pro-Western or at least a non-hostile future. As the sun sets this Wednesday, the American message to the survivors in Tehran is simple. The cute games are over. The bombs provided the leverage, the 48 paid the price, and now the conversation begins. But as Graham warned, the world is watching to see if the Iranian people can choose wisely in the vacuum left behind by the one-shot. By the afternoon of Wednesday, March 4, the internal state of Iran has become a black box to the rest of the world. With internet connectivity throttled to a mere 4%, the digital heartbeat of a nation of 90 million people has effectively flatlined. This isn't just technical censorship. It is a tactical silence that masks a country in the midst of a nervous breakdown. The digital dark age. In the absence of X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram, the 2 Irans are manifesting in the physical world. The 4% of traffic that leaks out mostly via satellite uplinks and smuggled SIM cards tells a story of a civilization experiencing 2 opposite emotions simultaneously, profound grief and clandestine hope. The funeral of a pillar. In Tehran, the atmosphere is heavy with the scent of incense and the weight of history. Thousands gathered at Tehran University on Sunday for the state funeral of Ali Khamenei. To the west, he was the mothership of terrorism, as Senator Graham put it. But to a significant portion of the population, the 6-year-old was the only center of gravity they had known for 36 years. His death is not just a political event. It is a psychic wound for those who lived within his ideological orbit. State media has declared 40 days of national mourning, a period of time that Trump's ahead-of-schedule campaign is unlikely to respect. The grief in Tehran is real, fueled by a terrifying question. If the man who held the republic together is gone, what stops the sky from falling, the lion and the sun? However, drive just 20 miles west to Karaj, a city of 2 million people, and the reality shifts. There, the flags being waved are not the green, white, and red of the Islamic Republic, but the pre-revolutionary lion and the Sunday. This sentiment is echoed in the little Irans of the world, Los Angeles, London, Toronto, and Berlin. Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has taken to the airwaves declaring that 47 years of the Islamic Republic end today and calling for military defections. For millions of Iranians who have felt like ghosts in their own country, the death of the 48 is not a tragedy. It is an exorcism. The human cost at the gate. But the most haunting image of this Wednesday afternoon isn't found in a funeral or a protest. It is found at the Turkey-Iran border. There, a CBC crew interviewed Garrett Buskaya, a Turkish man who managed to cross back into safety with his 6-year-old son. His wife, an Iranian citizen, was not allowed to leave. Buskaya, holding his son's hand at the border gate, told reporters he hoped Iran would change because the way people live there is in very bad shape right now. This is the human face of the one-shot doctrine. Behind the clinical talk of 48 leaders and ahead of schedule are families being torn apart at border gates waiting to see if the Iran that emerges from the smoke is a country they can finally call home or a failed state they will never to be allowed to leave. A civilization in limbo. As the sun sets over Tehran on March 4, the silence is the most telling factor. The Assembly of Experts cannot safely convene to name a successor. The IRGC commanders in the provinces are looking at their dead superiors and wondering who to fear more, the American B-21S above them or the people in the streets behind them. The 48 leaders were the glue of the Islamic Republic. Without them, the country is currently a collection of 90 million individuals waiting for a signal that may never come. They are living through the end of an era, and as Lindsey Graham warned, they are being told to choose wisely while the very infrastructure of choice information, leadership, and security is being systematically dismantled. As we reach the evening of Wednesday the 4th of March 2026, the true scale of Operation Epic Fury has moved beyond the military and into the existential. If the first 36 hours were about the one-shot and the kinetic destruction of the Iranian high command, the days that follow are about a much larger, more terrifying silence. Donald Trump's revelation of the 48 was not just a tally of the dead. It was an announcement that a civilization's institutional memory had been deleted. The knowledge gap. The fundamental problem facing Iran tonight is not that they lack a supreme leader. By constitutional procedure, a new figurehead can be named. The problem is that they lack the 48 people who knew how the country actually worked. When those leaders were eliminated in a single afternoon, Iran lost the men who knew where the tunnels led, who held the keys to the shadow bank accounts, and who understood the granular personal loyalties of the proxy networks across the plain. Levant. You can appoint a new general, but you cannot appoint 40 years of unwritten operational knowledge. The people who are left, the second and third tier officers, are now staring at a state machine they do not fully understand. They are being asked to navigate a national collapse, while the world's most advanced military continues to operate ahead of schedule. This is the morning after reality, a nation that still has the weapons but has forgotten how to use them as a cohesive strategic force. The conversation in the crater, Trump's confirmation to the Atlantic that he has agreed to talk to the surviving remnants of the Iranian leadership, creates a surreal juxtaposition. Somewhere in a facility that hasn't been hit, a group of Iranians is talking to Washington. Simultaneously, in the Strait of Hormuz, the Skylight is sinking and global shipping is paralyzed because the IRGC's headless tactical units are still following their last orders. This is the ultimate legacy of the 48, a state so decapitated that its diplomacy and its military are now two separate, uncoordinated entities. One is reaching for a pen, the other is reaching for a trigger. Neither one knows what the other is doing. Who builds the next Iran? The question that 48 dead leaders leaves behind is not a military one, but a generational one. Senator Lindsey Graham's ultimatum, choose wisely, is a heavy burden to place on a people who are currently living in a 4% internet blackout. The U.S. has effectively bulldozed the mothership of terrorism, but it has also removed the only structure that has governed these 90 million people since 1979. As the smoke clears over the Pickaxe Mountain and the funeral of Ali Khamenei concludes, the world is left to watch a high-stakes experiment in coercive democracy. Will the Iranian people, as the Crown Prince suggests, seize this moment to reclaim a pre-revolutionary identity? Or will the vacuum left by the 48 be filled by something even more chaotic, a collection of rogue IRGC provinces and competing warlords, the final picture? As of this hour, the picture is clear but unfinished. The 48 are gone. The schedule is running. The tankers are burning. The conversation has begun. Donald Trump described the 48 as a statistic, a quarterly beat in a larger project. But 48 is not a number. It is the end of an era. The people who knew how this story was supposed to end are dead. The people who have to figure out how it actually ends are currently standing at border gates, in funeral lines, and in bunkers looking at 48 empty chairs and wondering what comes next. The one shot has changed the world. Now the world waits to see if a nation can survive the morning after.